We are inside the room with Laura Marie.
Don't you be too sweet to me.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started with your journey in music.
I had written poetry from a very young age, since I was in elementary school, really. There was a poet that came to our elementary school, and I had a lot of internal dialogue going on. So poetry was just like an amazing thing, a way to get it out, right? And I learned how to do that. I was fascinated with that, with lyrics. I would listen to records on repeat all the time, trying to figure out what the lyrics meant, that sort of thing. But it wasn't until I think I was in college that I loved to sing. I had horrible stage fright. So I, was in church choir, but I would hide, behind people. And then I went to college and I had a complete nervous breakdown as a result of childhood trauma that I'd sort of, suppressed, that sort of thing. And when that happened, I found that the only way I could really process anything was to write. So I wrote lyrics and poetry. And then shortly after that, I went home. Was at gone to UT Austin, and I dropped out of there. Went home to San Antonio, and started writing lyrics, and then studying music. And then I ended up in a band, writing in the studio. It was a studio band only, so we just did studio stuff. And then from there, after that band broke up, I decided to start a band. And the bass player that was in that previous band, he and I got together and started auditioning people, and then we went from there. So that's how I got started.
What was the first band? Was Sofa Kingdom the first band?
The first band that was named. The band that was before that was not named. We were just in the studio. It was just a group of us, writing songs and recording. One of the members was a budding producer, so he put us together to create songs in the studio. We hadn't really even thought about performing at that point. It was just a matter of just be creative together.
So Sofa Kingdom was like a pop rock band, right?
Yeah, it was, kind of an alternative rock band, kind of, so everybody was kind of into rock, but it liked the alternative scene. Yeah. And there was some pop in there, and, wasn't folk, that's for sure. That's kind of later, yeah. We did one album each, and then we fell apart. And that the second band, things between, we didn't actually release that album until many years after we'd broken up. And then I sort of just say, hey guys, I'm going to put this out on my Bandcamp. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
So we did that.
But they're both online, right? Both of those recordings?
The recordings are online. They're on my Bandcamp page.
I'll be the thought that makes you shiver. Run your fingers through your hair. I'll be the one you want to hold, but the one you wouldn't dare. I'll be a constant reminder of a touch you never felt.
And then, so how did you kind of like evolve into going solo?
I was kind of burnt on bands. I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. And I was telling somebody this recently. I feel like I'm more of a songwriter who sings than a singer who writes, kind of thing. So it wasn't my top priority to perform. And I wanted to just go in the studio, record, and maybe try to pitch my songs to other artists, because I felt like I loved writing and I just wanted to write. And I was never it was always kind of a chore to get myself, to perform. It was very draining for me to perform, because I'm not the kind of person that gets a lot of energy. I'm very introverted as it is. So I don't really get my energy from that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I said, I don't want to do that. Let's just go in the studio. I have these songs that I want to record. And in the process of doing that, I felt like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to sing these songs. These are my songs. They were very, very personal to me. So I just decided to be a solo artist with the encouragement of my husband, who was like, you can do this. Just learn. Here's a guitar. Learn how to play it. Go.
Nice.
Go perform. And that's what I did from that on. Yeah.
Don't speak in code anymore, 'cause I've learned that it's best to be perfectly clear.
How do you categorize your music?
I always say pop folk, because it kind of has elements of both, and I don't really feel like I fit squarely into either category. So, but I mean, I kind of draw from a lot of different influences, just really everything that I hear, that I connect to. So
who are some of your influences as far as singers, songwriters?
Oh, they're all over the place. I used to have them all up on my wall in my other studio. But let's see, Joni Mitchell, Duncan Sheik, Sting, Tori Amos, Fleetwood Mac.
I love them. They're one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, Chrissy Hynde and the Pretenders. Let's see, some David Poe is a songwriter that I absolutely adore. His songwriting, Amy Mann. They're kind of all over the place.
I hear a little Amy Mann in you.
Do you? Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that.
I hear a little, I don't know if I should say it because I don't want to make you mad if you don't like the artist.
Natalie Merchant. If you say Natalie Merchant, I'm like, I'm not going to get mad, but I'm going to be like, yeah, that was a big, everybody kept saying, you're trying to sound like Natalie Merchant. I'm like, I'm not trying to sound
like her, but I hear a little bit of her in your voice.
Yeah, and she was actually...
and she's a great singer, so why not just take it?
Yeah, take it. I'd totally take it as a compliment. At first I didn't because I was annoyed because I had one of the first engineers I worked with was just like, he said, you sound like Natalie Merchant. And I was like, oh, and he goes, yeah, you need to grow out of that. And I was like, oh, like, what a jerk. But, yeah, I really love Natalie Merchant. And I was very influenced by her songwriting, the way that she wrote at the beginning. And I remember seeing her in the 10,000 Maniacs in Austin when I lived in Austin. And I was just blown away by them. So yeah, they were an influence for sure. But then as soon as people started saying that, I was like, well, I'm not trying to be that. That's not what I'm
You're not trying to copy that, but if that's what seeps in, it's what seeps in. That's just how it is.
Yeah. So yeah. So for a while, I think I did try to keep my distance from it, and then I was just like, who cares? I mean, like, it just do whatever makes you feel good.
There's no use jumping ahead, you end up right where you are. Give as good as you get, everybody in step, all you ever.
So what is your writing process like?
When I write, it's usually an idea, a lyrical idea first, and then the melody. Sometimes it's the other way though. It's hard. I went through a process where I did a song a week for 3 years, but there were 3 different separate projects. I did a song a week for each of those projects. And the first one was all by myself. And then second 2 were with a group that would give us, they'd give us a prompt and we'd have to write. And I found that I couldn't do it the same way when I worked with a prompt. I had to sit down and play, chords and try to get an idea of a melody, and then the words would come. When I was working with the band, I really just did the lyrics. So my guitarist would hand me music and I'd write music. But when I was on my own, it was always a lyrical idea first and then moving from there. Yeah, just an idea I wanted to get out.
The first time I heard your music was actually on the indie film Leftovers. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I was just I had an interview with my friend Rob Garcia, who was my introduction to a lot of the local indie film people. Yeah. We were just talking.
So I was in that movie too as an actor. I played a waitress. I don't remember what the character name was, but she was like the gossiping waitress, gossiping about, the main character.
Yeah.
So I watched the film and I heard your music all over it and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Who is this? So that's how I found out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love being able to have my music in film in any, especially working with local filmmakers. I think that's awesome. It makes me feel good.
Lay down your doubts, 'cause nothing else matters but my love. Lay down your...
So one time you did a fundraising campaign on one of your releases. What was that like?
I believe that was for the season. Jake Owen and I had done an EP called Threadbare. And while we were doing that EP, we decided, hey, let's just go ahead and I want to do a whole album. It was just after I had done like about a year's worth of writing. And I had a lot of songs that I wanted to record. And I loved the way Jake arranged songs. I just loved the way he thinks musically. So I said, it's going to be difficult to do. So, he's like, let's do a fundraiser. We'll do, one of those pledge drives. And we did. It was very painful. Like, I don't ever want to do that again. It's very stressful. It's a very stressful process for me. Do not have a personality. I've already talked about, and I know she's in the news these days in a negative light, Amanda Palmer, when she came out with the Art of Asking, or whatever the title, and everybody was like, kind of like, this is exactly what artists need to do. That, they just need to put themselves out there in a way and get the support. And I've just never been that person. And any organization that I've ever joined, any like PTA or whatever for my kids, or it's like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Don't ask me to call people and ask them for stuff, because that's a nightmare to me. So that whole time I was completely stressed out. Like, I'm like, I just want to go and earn the money myself and do it myself, because I just hate asking people to do that. So that was very stressful. I was blown away by the support though, because I really did get a lot of support. Jake and I got a lot of support for that.
So you worked with Jake Owen for a while, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's, like I said, I love the way he thinks. I love the way he arranges songs. Very creative. He's a singer-songwriter himself, so he really just gets it. And I think the biggest thing that I found with Jake was, in the music business, it was really difficult for me very male dominated, right? And I always felt like I was being scrutinized for things that had nothing to do with my creative process, that had more to do with my appearance, or my lack of knowledge in certain areas that other men wanted to be able to say, do it this way, do this, do that, and shape me and mold me to what they thought I should be. Whereas Jake was always, this is who you are. I know you. You're another songwriter like me, and it wasn't even a matter of like, I'm a man and you're a woman. It was just like, you're another songwriter, or you're another creative person, and we're just that. None of that came into play. So it was a very relaxing time to work with him and just sort of let go of those insecurities that I would feel being scrutinized in that way. So it was a dream to work with him like that, and he's been a good friend before and after.
I wouldn't write a song about my life to change who you are. I wouldn't write a song about you now to tear you apart.
So tell us about the song placement on The Young and the Restless. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I really, I guess right before the pandemic, I had really had it in my mind that I had been really pushing myself to perform a lot. And that, again, is something that isn't my biggest, isn't the thing that brings me joy, right? So I kind of started getting burnt out, and I didn't really understand why I was feeling so burnt out. And then the pandemic hits, and then there's not a whole lot you can do. And I had been toying with the idea of like, I'd rather do licensing. I want to do licensing. I like like you said, with the leftovers, I like the idea of having my music be a soundtrack to something, because I felt music, there was always a soundtrack in my head to everything I was doing in my life. So I thought that would be a cool thing to do. And I started taking courses on how to dive into it a little bit more. Like one of my previous EPs, the instrumentals on it had been in a library for many years, and I had gotten some residuals from that for a long time. It was like I think it was like, what's the name of it? Oh, Sister Wives and Little People, Big World. Like all these reality shows had little snippets of my songs in the background. And I thought that's the coolest thing ever. But, I never really tried very hard to get that going. So I started taking these courses around the pandemic, and then I got to meet some people who were also doing licensing. And it just really became apparent to me that I really needed to work with people who were familiar with licensing when we wrote together, so that we could kind of do a faster paced, creative process to get things out there and get them into the libraries, because we all had libraries we were working with. So I ended up working with this guy, Steve Cullum, who was teaching a course through another friend of mine, and we wrote a song together, and that song ended up on Young and the Restless. So that was fun. And then through that, I ended up in a different another library And I met some other songwriters there, and then we've been writing together and have a lot of songs that have been picked up by the same library. So it's a long game. You have a lot of songs in these libraries, and then you hope that you're going to get picked. pick me, right? So it's just a matter of, being patient and writing the best songs that you can.
Well, aren't you tragic, baby? Caught up in the magic of your half-hearted fantasies.
So tell us a little bit about kind of backtracking a little bit about being treated differently because you're a woman and things like that. An experience you had in the studio with the song Shadows, which is one of my favorite Laura Marie songs, by the way.
Really?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's in my top 6.
Thank you.
I made a little list.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That just makes my heart explode, really.
So cast your shadow. The daylight throws and never let you go.
I wrote a lot about this in my book because I just sort of had this pattern of being in environments that I think I was kind of blind to some of the misogyny that I allowed in my life. And so I was often faced with a number of men. I've talked to a lot of women songwriters who've had similar experiences where they go into the studio or they go into any kind of musical endeavor and their ideas have to be fixed or corrected or shaped to be more, more likable by men. It's this whole thing, like everything about everything you do needs to appeal to the male gaze, the male sensibility. And that I found that happening quite a bit. And I was on the verge of sort of changing everything about my career and stuff. And I was writing different songs. And I was at this point where I was just like, I want to write what I want to write. And I was working with somebody in the studio, a producer, and I brought him these songs. He's like, let's do a project. I'm like, okay. So I bring him some songs, and he was very familiar with me as a friend about some of my past issues, about a lot of the stories behind a lot of my songs and some of the inspirations for those songs. And when I played him Shadows, he just sort of sneered and said, aren't you over that yet? Like, haven't we done this before, kind of thing? And I was very proud of that song, but he sort of like, rolled his eyes or whatever. And around that same time, I guess that same day, actually, I was in the studio and I was trying out different looks because I always felt like when I'm at home, I'm in sweats, I'm in tank tops. It doesn't come naturally to me to present myself in a way that is like star quality, right? And I've been working with a friend of mine who is basically a stylist. So she had put me in different outfits and I was trying them on. And I was there and I was wearing shorts and I was wearing a long sweater and I had heels on. And just after that criticism, at some point, I guess he saw that I was sort of dejected and he started saying something about my legs. And he started talking to his engineer saying, don't her legs look good? Don't her legs look great like that? Check out her legs. And I looked at the engineer, I said, you don't have to answer that. That had happened so often and I never said anything. And I just sort of let it happen all the time and just ignored it or joked it, laughed it off. Don't want to be the woman that makes everybody uncomfortable, just kind of go with flow, one of the boys, whatever. And I was just tired of it at that point. So I just was thinking to myself, I can't do this anymore. I can't work with this person anymore. I can't sit there and listen to this and feel this way because it makes me feel, when I leave there, it doesn't make me feel better about myself. It makes me way more self-conscious and way more, just worried that my whole value has to do with how I look. And I don't want to be held to that as an artist. So I wrote Shadows, and which is about leaving a whole other person behind that was sort of using me in a way. And it just became this double meaning song of that situation in the background of trying to write the song, and then that song for what it actually meant. So when it got done and it was produced and I loved it, I love the way it came out because I didn't do it with that producer. I took it with a group of songs to Jake, and I said, oh, here are a bunch of songs. And in my mind, I had already been like, that song is probably not going to be one of the ones that he's going to like or want to work with or have ideas about because, I got very self-conscious about that song. Even though I loved it, I thought, well, nobody else sees what I see. And that was one of the first songs that Jay goes, I love that song. That's a great song. Let's do that one. So it's like, yeah, that's what you get.
2 points for me, 0 for you. No.
Yeah. I think either way, because when I work with somebody in the studio, I want them to vibe with the song. I want them to go, oh
Right.
yeah, because I'll take I have a bunch of songs. I'll just take them like, what speaks to you? What do you want to work with? I mean, to a point. There's other situations where I'm just like, this is the project I want to do, and these are the songs I want to include, and then go from there. Which I think is what should happen as an artist. You go into the studio and you say, these are the songs I want to. That's what I want to say to the world. Not,
Yeah.
Hey, is this okay if I say this to the world? Are you okay with it? That was me at one point, and it's not me anymore. It's me.
Good.
Yeah, me.
Good.
It's like now it's just like I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I just think like if you censor yourself, it's just not going to be as good.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I always felt for a long time, I felt like I was going through so many filters because I was so self-conscious that I was looking to people outside for their approval. Tell me if this is good. Tell me if this is okay. Am I okay with this? Do I sound good with this? Like I just had no self-esteem as far as like the quality of my voice, the quality of my songwriting, my own ideas. I didn't have any confidence in any of it. So I let other people dictate and filter what I was going to say. And then when they told me things needed fixing, I got to the point where I thought, nothing I do is good enough. So I always have to be dependent on this person who tells me what to fix, because then I'll be okay. And what consistently, when I would get back from people who knew me, musicians who knew me and worked with me personally, was just like, yeah, but that doesn't sound like you. Or that's not you when we play live. That's not how you are when we're together. And, and I kept getting that message over and over again from musicians who knew me, that they just wanted to hear me in person because the recording to them wasn't the real me. And I felt like working with some people made it difficult, and then with others, I was sort of set free. So, yeah.
So you have some videos too. Shadows is one of the videos.
Yeah. Yeah, I got on I started making these little videos from time to time, and my whole thing with the videos was, it was like a little joke to myself. Like, how can I create a video, the least expense, with the least amount of effort, like to try to create myself, to make myself look a certain way or whatever. Like, what can I do that is, because there's a lot you can do, right? There's a lot of things you could do to make something look fun or interesting or whatever. And it just became a challenge to me to use my creative expression to try to figure out my ways around, like, how do I do this the cheapest way possible, but I'm going to add all these little things. And I had fun with different apps on started out on my phone, and then it ended up on my computer, where I would just sort of take these different apps and see what I could do with whatever footage I shot of myself or landscapes or whatever around town. And it was just me and my camera running around in the woods half time.
Yeah, too sweet. You're running around the woods.
Yeah, I was running around the woods. And I had a couple
I was like,
people.
yes, this is so Gypsy Fleetwood Mac.
I had a man stop and go, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" I mean, I must have looked like nuts, because I'm out there barefoot in the woods with a long flowy skirt on.
Yeah.
Just jumping around or turning around. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm just a little crazy, I guess,
You can make it up again, but who do you blame when you leave yourself in play?
So tell us about the book.
Yeah. So that I had been thinking about writing it for a while, and I had these songs that I wanted to do in a project. And I realized that each of the songs had the similar, they came from similar relationships. Not that those relationships were similar. They came from a similar situation in my inability to draw healthy boundaries in my life. So I'm a sexual assault survivor. childhood sexual assault, and then later date rape when I was an older teen. So I had these experiences and realized through a lot of therapy that going back to the having that experience and having the trauma from that experience really informed how I showed up in relationships from that point on. And I did not understand why I kept getting in the same kind of relationships, how I kept ending up in situations that were manipulative or just completely codependent and unhealthy, and how that was affecting my life, whether or not it was a friendship or even just a relationship that just kind of got obsessive when it shouldn't be. Like I'm married, like I'm in a committed relationship and have been for a number of years, but I would find myself in these situations that were really just like, what is happening? Like why am I in this situation? Why is it getting all of a sudden very shady? I don't, why is this happening to me? Not realizing what about me was allowing that sort of energy into my life. And as I began to figure it out, I started doing a lot of writing and both music and then just writing, like journaling to help me through it. And then eventually I just decided, yeah, I'm going to write a book about this, and I'm going to write the songs, and then I'm going to talk about where that song came from and the situations in my life that led me to that point that I was in. I have stories about, other musicians that I've worked with that the relationship got very unhealthy. I have a story of a childhood friend who I was very, very close to, who became a drug addict, and how that relationship became very unhealthy. And I wrote a song about that.
Is that Painkiller?
Yeah.
That's also in my top 6 Laura Maurice.
Well, yeah. And that one I have actually, I tell the story in the book, and I keep thinking there's got to be a time that I write the conclusion to that story, because there's more to it now. I lost track of him, but then I found him again. So it was kind of like a crazy moment of synchronicity that happened, that I ran across him again. So, so that's kind of where the book came from. It was really this idea of, I wanted other survivors to know that they weren't at fault for what happened to them, but they were responsible for healing, because people aren't going to do the work to be safe for you. You have to do work for yourself so that other people are safe for you. So you're always going to run into people who will push your limits, push your boundaries, but how do you make yourself safe in the presence of those people? And that's what the book was about for me, about how I got to that point, how I learned how to set healthy boundaries, and how I learned to be safe and secure in myself, so that I wouldn't feel constantly paranoid or unmoored, or just like I don't know if I'll be okay in this situation or not. I don't know if this, I always felt like I anything could happen. Anything. And I don't want to be that person. I have kids. I want to be a stable person for my family, and I want to be a stable person for myself, and not be this little boat on a wave that gets knocked around every time, something comes around that sort of shakes things up a bit. Yeah. So that's where that came from.
That can be ordered through your website, right? The book?
Yes, and it's on Amazon. I decided not to do. I decided to have it to where that you can have it printed directly from Amazon. So basically, you order, and then they print it out, they send it to you. So that works.
So what's next for you, or what are you working on now?
And so now, setting up the studio here. Got my vocal booth back there in the closet, and so just finishing up the studio. I'm starting back up at the end of this month, writing with my writing partners that I do, the licensing, the library sort of thing. We're doing that. And I am self-producing some songs, because I also took courses on how to do that, because I really wanted to be able to do better demos than I had, just me in front of my phone. Instead, now actually, putting arrangements together myself, which is something I hadn't done before. So I do have a single that I just finished, where I did the entire arrangement myself. And so
can you tell us what it's called?
It's called Hey There Tornado. Hey There Tornado. Yeah, it's about somebody.
Hey There Tornado?
Hey There Tornado. It's about a person in my life who is complete chaos all the time, 24/7. So hence tornado. And it was just about that situation. So I have that song, and I have about 3 other songs that I'm working on that are more probably in line with protest songs, inspired by recent events, shall we say, that I'm working on. And because I know like we're on social media, I do write a lot on social media about things that really piss me off, and just things that I think about current events and about lies being spread about different communities and that sort of thing. So, I'm sure some of that's going to come out in music. So I'm working on those things as well. We'll be self-producing those as well. I know I do have some performances coming up, especially San Antonio Fiesta. I'll be performing it for Fiesta Youth, the LGBTQ youth organization in San Antonio. And
so you have that coming up for Fiesta. That's right around the corner.
But I don't have a lot of live performances lined up because it just hasn't been the focus right now. But the writing has, and I'll continue to do that.
Okay, so when do you think the single will come out, more or less?
I'm hoping that I can get it out by around that time, by around April or so. Yeah.
All of these words that make the same mistakes we made, and I won't erase. There's not a single moment that
So what is your advice for new artists?
To be relentlessly honest with yourself, and to not let anybody else shape you. Honestly, like, we need more authentic artists and less people trying to come out and just be famous and have people form and shape them to their will. Like, especially women. Like, I just want to say this, especially to young women artists, because I still see it. I had this incident happen very recently where somebody told me that a producer I used to work with said that he refused to work with this one artist if she didn't get her hair done the way he wanted her to have her hair done. And I'm like, and this is a young female artist who I'm sure is coming to this person thinking he's an expert in the field.
Very impressionable still.
Very impressionable. And she has to sit there and be critiqued about her appearance. Yeah, I'm just done with it. I'm done with it. And I know those people say, well, you have to look the part. No, you don't.
Part of an artist is just being what you want to be.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
That's what it should be.
That's what it should be. That really is how it should be. And I know that there's something to be said, like, well, I'm going to be on TV, or I'm going to do this, and yeah. But there's people that are entertainers, and if you want to be an entertainer, then you go and do what you need to do to be an entertainer. Put on your meat suit, put on your sequins, whatever you want to do, and that's cool. You embody that's what you're about. That's awesome if that's what you're about. But to have anybody else tell you need to do this to fit this mold, that is the death of your artistry. So and you won't even know it. The influences, there's always going to be people trying to influence you, to shape you to their will for whatever reasons, whether it's to have the control or to just or to try and make money off you. I don't know the motivations, but there are people out there who just really want to control the situation and have you, especially young female artists. And I feel like those are the ones that need to speak out more. I always say all the time, I owe it to the lesbian community I owe it to them that I can speak up for myself, because they were the ones that inspired me to say, like, you don't need anybody's approval. You don't need anybody to tell you how to be. And I was like, oh, I don't? Oh, okay, thank you. Because I really needed to hear that, I guess, because I just thought I was supposed to do what everybody else told me to do. So,
right.
Yeah, so be yourself relentlessly, completely, and do things legally. Please, like, go and check, have contracts made and know your business and how it works, and get your songs copywritten, and make sure you make agreements with anybody you work with, because that stuff too will come back. Yeah. That's my advice to young artists, for sure.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Read the fine print.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, thanks again. Thank you so much
Thanks for having me.
hanging out with us. LauraMarieMusic.com.
Yep.
For anyone who wants to check out all her music's on there, her videos, her socials, her book, you can find everything there. LauraMarieMusic.com. So now you really have to update your website.
Yes, I really do. I will go do that now.
Amongst all the other million things you have to do.
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so
Enjoyed it.
much. We appreciate
Good
it. Bye.
talking to you. Okay.